Meanwhile, let's have a chat about some of the big stories that have been occurring over the last week. And really, I've got to say, stand up for Australia a bit tonight, yet again, because, you know, I always talk about our values, I always talk about our traditions, absolutely critical we do it. Senator of Queensland Malcolm Roberts joins us, former Speaker of the House of Representatives Bronwyn Bishop's also joining us. The great Bernie Finn from the Victorian Parliament joins us. Good evening, one and all.
Good evening.
G'day, Gary. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
And it's great to have each of you on the program. I don't know whether you heard my rant at the half past of the hour, you know, the first half hour of the program, but I actually said I think Australia's missed an opportunity to really bring a lot of people together, more recently arrived, as well as those who've got multiple generations, when it comes to the Cook 250th. And well, Senator Roberts, I can't believe some of your Green colleagues, well, I can actually, the internationalist Greens don't want Australia to have its own traditions, don't want it to have its own nationhood. But the Greens say we're doing too much for Cook. I'm not even hearing much of a whisper about the Cook commemoration, Senator.
I'm not hearing much either, Gary. In fact, but I do agree with you about the Greens, my Greens colleagues, as you put them.
Yes.
They're anti-human, they're anti-industry, they're anti-Australia as well. So they are doing whatever they can to put forward a narrow perspective to get their PC votes. That's all they're doing. They're shallow, lack substance, and that's why their policy is so bad, because it's ideologically driven, not fact-based.
Hey, you know, Bronwyn Bishop, I just say this is an opportunity. I've got a lot of friends who more recently arrived in their own lifetime, or maybe their parents' lifetime, to Australia, and they say they don't know the Cook story. The Age of Enlightenment in the 1770 journey of Cook is now being replaced by an age of ignorance 250 years later.
That's exactly right, Gary. But we've seen again and again, haven't we, the infiltration of our institutions by socialism, which wants to destroy the country as we know it. And this is exactly what they're doing. And it is necessary that we do celebrate what Cook did. I mean, the man's journeys, the man's ability was outstanding by whatever measure you use. And, you know, we talk about migrants to this country. Well, my lot came first in 1849. Other people have come maybe 6 days ago or 6 years ago. Aboriginal people came 60,000 years ago, but we all came from somewhere else originally. It's just a matter of the timing. So coming together as a nation is what happened when we, in 1901, when we finally federated, we were a whole nation. But that process went on by waves of people coming here and establishing Australia as we know it. And there's no backing away from it, it's fact. And people who are deniers of fact are very dangerous people. And we really have to stand up against it. So we need to celebrate what Cook did.
Well, I think we have to. I mean, extraordinary, Bernie, NASA got it. They named one of their space shuttles the Endeavour, because they wanted to acknowledge that in an earlier time, when there wasn't satellite navigation, Cook did it by the stars. He did it by the time he was sailing and the measurements and everything. He got to Tahiti within 36 hours of when he needed to be there. An extraordinary journey in the late 1760s. Just extraordinary.
It didn't do him a lot of good, it has to be said, but in the end in Tahiti. But he was an extraordinary navigator, an extraordinary sailor, and somebody who modern Australia owes an enormous amount to. And unfortunately, you know, you mentioned the Greens. They are just one small part of an international movement which is out to destroy Western civilization. And that is a simple fact of life. I mean, they don't hide it. They don't bother hiding it. They are out to destroy Western civilization, and an important part of the destruction of Western civilization is destroying our history, is making sure that kids don't know what happened in Australia before the day before yesterday. I mean, when I was at school, which has to be said, is not just last week, we learned about Captain Cook. You know, we learned about Van Diemen. We learned about all of these people. These days, they don't even know who Bob Hawke is.
Well said, Bernie, well said.
But I mean, Malcolm Roberts, the point here is you've got Sydney University saying that we're no longer British to the bootstraps. Well, I get that. I mean, my family background is very Anglo-Celtic, although in recent weeks, I've disclosed this before, I found a Nordic thing as well. I got a bit of Norwegian and Swedish in there, apparently. The Vikings rule, I say. But, you know, I'm part Scottish, part English, part Irish, which means I like a drink, want someone else to pay for it. But why should we be afraid of our Britishness?
Well, I think we should be proud of our humanness, our humanity. That's what really brings us all together. And making divisions based on colour or belief or ideology is just nonsense. We should all remember that the civilisation we are building here in Australia is unique. But it's combined and it comes out of the Magna Carta and Western civilization, which has its roots in Britain, was further developed in America. They're fundamental. And the Australian Aboriginals have got a lot to be grateful for having that civilization come down to this country. So yeah. I think we can get on better if we stop separating people and actually work together.
Yeah, I mean, look, I get it, Bronwyn, that there's some bad things happen, but you know what? Bad things do happen to good people. And I think all of us feel regret based on our 21st century values about the way in which things were done in other times. But it shouldn't hold us back. We do need to reconcile the mistakes, move on with the future as best we can, create an Australia we can all be proud of.
Well, Kerry, those people who are interested in history will know, of course, if you look back at the history of Britain and you look at the invasions of people who came into Britain and conquered one lot after the other, and then finally look at perhaps the Norman conquest, which was the most significant perhaps in the end. They're pretty much a polyglot lot.
I like the Vikings, Bronwyn. Well, you're talking about my Viking ancestors who, you know,
I'm told,
sacked Scotland.
I'm told.
How do you spell that, Gary?
Well, I'm told that my maiden name, which is set right, is Viking in origin, whereas my mother's name of Congreve is probably Norman in origin. But the bottom line is it was a polyglot lot, and each wave was pretty nasty to the lot of people who were there at the time. So in history, there are nasty things that go on, but we can't run away from them. We've got to look at fact. Now, the fact of the matter is waves of migration have come to Australia, and what we've established is a pretty wonderful country. But we do have socialists who have crept in who want to destroy it. And the others are quite right when they say the Greens, they don't want a nation state. They want world government, for heaven's sake. But right. We had it creep into the Liberal Party as well, when Malcolm Turnbull crept in. And, you know, Alan Jones ousted him the other day as being, quite frankly, a liar. So we have to be very careful about what we say is the way that this country has been established and that it's worth fighting for. I mean, my father went to war to give the gift of freedom to me as his child in World War II. So we have to celebrate these things, not disparage them. And a couple of words of advice for the PM, I think. Let's have some free enterprise here. Stop listening to greenies, climate alarmists, the ABC. Cut some taxes, get out of things French, get out of the Paris Agreement and the submarines, and start listening. Start listening to people who talk good, solid common sense. On Sky Prime, like Paul, like you, like Chris.
Bravo.
You know, yes, what good people we've got, like Peter Credlin, people who are talking common sense and putting forward points of view people agree with.
Well, Bronwyn, it shouldn't be hard. And Bernie, it reaches a point of complete frustration. I know you're a sitting member in the Liberal Party, and Godspeed to you, my friend, but I think it's time that we needed the big national vision. Why aren't we talking about the big project? I keep going back to water, but I do water because water brings city and country together. It brings migrant and long-standing Australian together. And if we have let's borrow some money. Don't worry about anything else. Borrow money. Let's build our confident future.
Well, I think we're not doing that. We're not having the big vision thing because, quite frankly, we're defending what we've got already. I mean, our basic institutions in this country are under attack in a huge way. In Victoria here, for example, we used to have a justice system. We don't anymore. It's now a legal system. There's very little justice dispensed. And you see that right through the universities, which are, you know, some of the stuff they teach in universities these days, I'm just staggered. I'm just absolutely staggered. We have an education system which is under attack in a big way from the left. Even our parliamentary system of government is under attack from the left. So, you know, there is a big push on from the left right across Australia. And make no mistake, they come in various forms, not just what the traditional left. Just look at some of the people in the New South Wales government, and you'll see that as well. But you know, we have to consolidate what we believe in, consolidate our foundation before we can really go anywhere.